Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know, we talk about all sorts of interesting stuff on this show.
We do.
But today we're going to unpack something
Yeah.
that you might not think too much about in your daily life.
Okay.
Gift giving.
Gift giving. I like it.
Yeah, it's fun to get presents and all that.
Yeah.
But did you know that gift giving
Right.
can be a powerful driver of social change?
It's absolutely true. And, especially in societies that don't have what we would consider a modern economy,
Yeah.
gift giving is about way more than just the stuff.
Right.
It's a way to build relationships, create obligations, and even influence your social standing.
So it's almost like a social game then,
It really is a great way to put it.
with its own set of rules.
Yeah, and in some societies, those rules can get
Oh, yeah.
really intense.
Why? Yeah.
Competitive gift giving,
Competitive.
where reciprocation is expected with interest.
Okay, so it's not just about being nice.
Yeah.
It's about one-upping each other.
Exactly. There's an old saying that goes, with gifts, you make slaves. Which might sound a little harsh, but it really gets at this idea that a gift isn't always free.
Right.
It creates a debt that needs to be repaid, often with interest.
Okay, so then how do researchers study something as complex as gift giving and its impact on entire societies? It's not like we can go back in time and observe these things happening, firsthand.
Well, that's where models come in.
Okay.
Researchers have developed a model,
Yeah.
a sort of simplified game, if you will,
Right.
to study how this competitive gift-giving can shape a society.
Gotcha.
It's like a thought experiment
Oh, right.
that lets us explore different scenarios.
So walk me through this model. What are the basic rules we're working with here?
Imagine a society
Okay.
where people produce wealth, they give gifts, and are obligated to reciprocate those gifts with interest.
Yeah.
If someone can't reciprocate,
Yeah.
they fall into debt.
Makes sense.
Simple system, but watch what happens when we tweak a few key parameters.
Okay, like what?
Well, first you've got the interest rate. That's how much the gift needs to be amplified when it's returned.
Right.
Then there's the frequency of gift giving,
Okay.
how often these exchanges are happening,
Gotcha.
and then finally the size of the population.
Okay.
More people means more interactions, more gifts, and more potential for things to get interesting.
All right, so we've set up our model society.
Yep.
We've got these different dials that we can adjust.
We do.
What happens when we start turning those dials?
Let's find out.
What if we crank up the interest rate and the frequency of gift giving?
Well, things start to get interesting.
Okay.
The model shows us that as the interest rate and frequency of gift giving go up, we start to see the emergence of inequality.
Really?
Some people become very wealthy because they're receiving more gifts and accumulating more wealth through that interest, while others struggle to repay their debts.
It's almost like a snowball effect then.
Exactly. The more you have, the more you get.
Yeah.
And this takes us from a relatively equal society, think like a small band of hunter-gatherers, to something more like a tribe with different levels of wealth and social status.
So these generous gift givers become like the influencers of their time, shaping the social structure around them.
You could say that.
Interesting.
And it doesn't stop there.
No.
As that pressure of gift giving keeps increasing, the gap between the haves and the have-nots widens even further.
Okay.
Economic inequality spills over into social inequality.
So the wealthier folks gain even more influence and status. It's like they're moving up the social ladder while others are stuck at the bottom.
Precisely. And that's where we see the transition from a tribe to something more like a chiefdom.
A chiefdom.
And if we keep pushing those parameters, really high interest rates, constant gift giving, things
Yeah.
get even more extreme.
Oh, wow, there's more. So gift giving can actually lead to the creation of like royalty.
Believe it or not, yes.
Wow.
In the model, when those gift-giving dynamics are really cranked up, we often see the emergence of a single ultra-wealthy individual who dominates the entire social structure, a monarch, like the ultimate expression of inequality, the birth of a kingdom.
That's pretty incredible.
It is.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on gift giving.
Good.
It's not just a simple act of generosity. It's like a complex game of social strategy.
You got it. But it's important to remember, this is just a model.
Right.
It's a simplified representation of reality,
Sure.
designed to help us understand how these dynamics might play out.
Of course. Of course. But it does raise some interesting questions.
It does.
Like, why does increasing the interest rate and the frequency of gift giving lead to such a dramatic change in the distribution of wealth? What's the underlying mechanism at work here?
That's a great question. And to understand that, we need to take a closer look at something called the rich get richer effect.
Okay, the rich get richer effect. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Remember how in the model wealth grows through interest on gifts?
Yeah.
Well, those who are already wealthy receive more gifts
Right.
and therefore accumulate wealth at a much faster rate than others. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, picking up more snow as it goes.
Makes sense. So the more you have, the more you get. But wouldn't that mean that eventually one person ends up with all the wealth and everyone else has nothing?
That's where things get even more interesting. Not necessarily. While it's true that the rich get richer effect can lead to significant wealth disparities, it doesn't always result in one person hoarding everything.
Okay.
The outcome actually depends a lot on those parameters. We talked about the interest rate and the frequency of gift giving.
Right. Those dials we were adjusting earlier.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how those seemingly small tweaks can have big ripple effects.
Yeah, when the interest rate and frequency of gift giving are relatively low, the rich get richer effect is much weaker.
Okay.
Wealth tends to be more evenly distributed
Uh-huh.
because random exchanges play a bigger role. Think of it like flipping a coin over many tosses. Things tend to even out.
Right. That makes sense.
So in those early, more egalitarian societies,
Yeah.
gift giving might have been more about maintaining social bonds than gaining an advantage.
Yeah, I have to see that.
But as the pressure of gift giving ramps up,
Yeah.
with higher interest rates and more frequent exchanges, that randomness starts to fade and the rich get richer effect takes over.
Right.
Wealth becomes concentrated at the top, leading to those more stratified societies with chiefs and, in extreme cases, monarchs.
So it's like a tipping point.
Yeah.
Once the gift-giving game gets competitive enough, the whole system shifts towards inequality.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about the economics. Remember, gift giving is inherently a social act.
Right.
So as wealth becomes more concentrated, it also starts to influence social status and relationships.
Right. We were talking earlier about how gift-giving can be a way to climb the social ladder. So how does this model account for those social dynamics?
Well, in addition to tracking wealth,
Yeah.
the model also tracks something called social reputation.
Social reputation. Okay. What is that exactly?
Think of it like a score. That reflects an individual's standing in society.
Gotcha.
Based on how many gifts they've given, how well they've reciprocated gifts from others, and whether they've managed to put others into debt by giving gifts they can't immediately repay.
So it's like a social credit score, but instead of tracking your financial history, it's tracking your gift-giving prowess.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
I like that.
And just like with wealth, we see some interesting patterns emerge in the distribution of social reputation scores as those gift-giving parameters change.
So what happens to those scores as the game heats up?
Well, when the interest rate and frequency of gift-giving are low, those social reputation scores are pretty evenly distributed.
Okay.
Most people have a similar score because gifts are generally reciprocated promptly, and there isn't much opportunity for anyone to pull ahead of the pack.
So in those more egalitarian societies, everyone's kind of on equal social footing.
Exactly. But as the interest rate and frequency of gift giving increase, remember, some individuals start accumulating more wealth.
Right.
Well, that wealth starts to translate into higher social reputation scores as well.
Yeah.
They can afford to give bigger, more impressive gifts, and they can often afford to wait longer for reciprocation.
So it's like they're playing the gift-giving game on a whole different level.
Yeah.
Their generosity gives them a leg up both economically and socially.
Precisely. And because reciprocating those large gifts can take time, those who receive them end up indebted to the giver for longer periods.
Right.
Further reinforcing the social imbalance.
It's like those lavish gifts come with invisible strings attached, binding the recipient to the giver in a kind of social contract.
That's a powerful image, and it highlights how gift-giving can be a subtle yet potent way to assert social dominance and solidify one's position within the hierarchy.
Wow, this is fascinating. So as the gift-giving game gets more intense, those who are already ahead tend to pull further away from the pack, not just in terms of wealth, but also in terms of social influence.
Exactly, and that's where we see the model transition from that tribe phase, where there's some economic inequality but not much social inequality, to the chiefdom phase where both are present.
Okay, so far so good.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that something really interesting happens with these social reputation scores when we reach that kingdom phase with an all-powerful monarch right.
You have a good memory, and yes, this is where things take a surprising turn.
Okay. I'm all ears. What happens to the social pecking order when a monarch enters the picture?
In the kingdom phase, with sky-high interest rates and constant gift-giving, the distribution of social reputation scores among the non-monarch population actually becomes more even.
Wait, I thought we were talking about increasing inequality.
I know.
How does that make sense?
I know it seems counterintuitive, but here's the logic. When you have a single ultra-wealthy monarch who dominates the economy, everyone else is essentially competing for scraps. They might give gifts to each other, but they're all ultimately indebted to the monarch.
So it's like everyone is playing in a minor league, while the monarch is in a league of their own, calling all the shots.
Exactly. And because everyone is indebted to the monarch, they have very limited opportunities to increase their social reputation scores relative to each other.
Right.
They're all sort of stuck in the same boat, vying for the monarch's favor.
That's wild. So the emergence of a monarch actually compresses the social hierarchy for everyone else.
Yes.
It's like a pyramid with a really pointy top and a really wide base.
That's a great visual.
I like that.
And it highlights how this seemingly simple model of gift-giving can produce some pretty complex and surprising results.
This is blowing my mind. So the model is telling us that the most extreme form of economic inequality doesn't necessarily lead to a super stratified social hierarchy.
Yeah.
It creates a very specific kind of hierarchy with a single, incredibly powerful individual at the top and everyone else clustered more closely together below.
That's a great way to summarize it. But this raises another question. How does the model explain why those social reputation scores become more evenly distributed in the presence of a monarch? What's the mechanism driving that shift?
I was just thinking the same thing. Let's unpack that a bit further. Okay, so let's talk about how this model explains those shifts in social reputation when a monarch's involved.
Right. Well, we need to remember how people gain those social reputation points in the first place.
Right, giving and reciprocating gifts?
Exactly. Giving gifts that put people in debt to you
Yeah.
gives even more points.
So the bigger the gift, the more social points you get, especially if the other person can't pay you back right away.
Precisely, the longer someone owes you, the more your reputation grows.
Okay.
But when you have a monarch in the picture,
Yeah.
they're already so wealthy
Right.
that it becomes almost impossible for anyone else to create that level of debt.
They can't compete.
Right, everyone's already indebted to the monarch.
So it's like trying to compete with Amazon or something. Good luck getting anyone to buy from your small shop when they can get it all from the mega corporation.
Exactly. And remember, the monarch is giving gifts out randomly.
Right.
So even if you try to give someone a big gift, chances are
Yeah.
they're already in debt to the monarch.
It's not going to have the same impact.
Right. Your gift just doesn't have the same impact.
It's like trying to impress someone who's already seen it all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your efforts just fall flat.
Precisely. And that's why those social reputation scores among everyone who's not the monarch
Yeah.
tend to even out. They're all playing by the monarch's rules with limited ways to stand out from the crowd.
Okay, so we've been talking about this model and how it explains the connection between gift giving and how societies are structured. But are there any real-world examples
Oh,
that actually reflect these dynamics?
absolutely. Anthropologists have observed these patterns in many cultures throughout history. Take the potlatch ceremonies practiced by indigenous groups along the northwest coast of North America.
Okay, the potlatch.
These were elaborate feasts where chiefs would give away massive amounts of wealth blankets, copper food, even slaves
Oh, wow.
to rivals and community members.
So they're basically throwing these extravagant parties as a way to show off their wealth and power.
It was more than just showing off, though.
Oh.
The gifts created obligations.
Right.
Those who received were expected to reciprocate later with even more valuable gifts. It was a high-stakes game of one-upmanship, all fueled by gift-giving.
That's intense. Like those gift battles you see in some online communities these days.
Yeah.
People trying to outdo each other with increasingly extravagant virtual gifts.
That's a great modern-day comparison, and if a chief couldn't reciprocate adequately, they would lose face, and their standing in the community would suffer.
Yeah, big time.
Gift-giving was a powerful tool for both maintaining and challenging the social hierarchy.
So a bit like how influencers today can rise and fall based on their ability to, generate hype and engagement.
Exactly, and the potlatch wasn't just a North American thing. We see similar dynamics in cultures all over the world.
Oh, really? Like where?
Take the Mocha Exchange in Papua New Guinea.
The mocha. Okay.
In the Mocha, influential leaders called big men compete for status by giving away large numbers of pigs and other valuables.
So pigs are like the ultimate status symbol in this system.
You could say that the more pigs a big man can give away, the higher their standing in the community. And just like in the potlatch, the recipients are obligated to reciprocate later, ideally, with even more pigs.
It sounds like a never-ending cycle of trying to outdo each other with these increasingly extravagant gifts.
It is, and it creates a dynamic system of social mobility where status is constantly being negotiated through these gift exchanges.
So these real-world examples seem to fit the patterns we see in the model.
They do.
Competitive gift-giving can lead to the concentration of wealth and power
Yes.
in the hands of a few. But what about that monarch scenario? Are there any societies that really fit that extreme level of inequality?
It's important to remember that models are simplifications. They're meant to highlight key dynamics, not perfectly mirror reality, but we can see echoes of that monarch scenario in some historical examples.
Okay, like where?
Think about the absolute monarchies of Europe.
Okay, yeah.
In those systems, the king or queen held a vast amount of wealth and power, and everyone else was basically subservient to them.
Right. I mean, kings weren't exactly winning popularity contests with gifts.
Of course not.
There was a lot more to it than that.
There were complex political and military structures at play, but gift-giving still played a role.
Okay.
Kings and queens often used lavish gifts to secure alliances, reward loyalty, and reinforce their position of power. And because they controlled the resources of the kingdom, they could give gifts on a scale no one else could match.
So while it wasn't the only factor,
Yeah.
gift-giving could still contribute to that extreme concentration of power in
Absolutely.
the hands of a monarch.
It shows how those dynamics of gift-giving status and obligation can play out on a grand scale, shaping the course of entire civilizations.
Wow, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
I'm starting to see gift-giving in a whole new light. It's not just about birthdays and holidays. It's about power status and the very fabric of societies.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a testament to how something that seems so simple on the surface can have such profound and far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely. So next time I'm struggling to pick out a gift, maybe I'll think twice about the subtle social dynamics I might be setting in motion.
Maybe.
Who knows? Maybe I'll accidentally start a gift-giving revolution.
Or maybe you'll just make someone's day. After all, at its heart, gift-giving is about connection and generosity. It's about acknowledging those bonds that make us human.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of gift-giving.
Yes.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating topic with us. Until next time.